U.S. President Donald Trump this weekend announcing he's prepared to run Venezuela for the long haul after capturing the country's dictator in a major military and intelligence operation Saturday. Now, despite arresting Nicolas Maduro, the U.S. Has backed the installment of his former second-in-command, Delcy Rodriguez, who has been now sworn in as the country's interim president, despite decrying the arrest of Maduro. So, what comes next? John Bolton was Donald Trump's national security advisor during his first administration. In the years since then, Bolton has become a harsh critic of the president and is currently facing criminal charges on the alleged mishandling of classified information. Hi, Ambassador Bolton. Good to see you again. Thank you very much for making the time.
Glad to be with you.
Maduro is gone, but I saw pictures today of his son sitting in the legislature. His vice president is obviously still there, and according to Donald Trump, at various points could end up running things on behalf of the United States or offering some sort of cooperation. I'm wondering what your assessment, Ambassador, is of the degree to which things could actually change for Venezuela, given that.
Well, I don't think things are going to change very much as long as the rest of the regime, missing Maduro to be sure, but as long as the rest of the regime is in place, it's filled with people who think the same way that he does at the top. And, you know, they are not really making loud noises about the United States right now. I think they're playing for time. I think they want to check to make sure the military is still loyal. They want to see what their friends in Russia and Cuba, China and Iran will do to help them. So they need some time to get things sorted out. But the idea that the U.S. is running Venezuela now and that the regime itself will simply do what we ask them to do, I think is fantasy.
Is there anything that could circumvent that? And by that I mean a new election or you know, a leader who has won a previous election, something to that effect. I know Trump has been dismissive of that. What is your view?
Well, the way this should have worked out was what we tried to do back in Trump's first term in 2018 and 2019, when the opposition, led by interim President Juan Guaido, whom we recognized as the legitimate president, tried to get individuals in the Maduro regime, in effect, to come over to the opposition side. And they had a plan. Sadly, it didn't work, and Maduro remained in power. But the idea should be that the new government is the opposition, the people who won the presidential election in 2024 that Maduro stole. And yet, by dealing with Maduro's own regime, Trump really is strengthening them. He's giving them a kind of legitimacy that they just don't deserve. So I think the people of Venezuela are going to be cruelly disappointed if we continue down this path. It's just wrong to talk about regime change here. Maduro's been removed, but the regime is still there.
What does that tell you about Trump's motivations?
Well, I think his mind is just full of mush on this. I don't think he knows what his real motivation is. One day it's drugs, the next day it's terrorism, the next day it's illegal immigration into the U.S., the next day it's oil. But then he says it's not regime change. You know, the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense briefed Congress a couple of weeks ago. Regime change was not the objective, and so you put all that together, and to me, it's further confirmation, more evidence that Trump is really just making this up as he goes along. This isn't part of some grand strategy. He's making decisions by the seat of his pants.
When he does mention oil, which he's done with a bit more frequency, for example, you know, since everything that took place on Saturday, he talks more specifically about, you know, right away his priority is to get American companies more access to Venezuelan oil. I know you know Venezuela very well. Is it that simple?
Not at all. Look, it is true that the oil infrastructure in Venezuela, from exploration to drilling to production to refining, from top to bottom, is very dilapidated, very decrepit. The Chavez-Maduro regime has been stealing the oil profits for decades, has not reinvested in PDVSA, the state-owned oil company. So for anybody to try and revive production in Venezuela and make it ready for export is going to take billions and billions of dollars of capital investment. And it's going to take time to do it. You can't snap your fingers and have this all come into play all at once. Even if you could get major American companies and other foreign companies to take the risk of going back into Venezuela. How do they know in a few years their assets may not be expropriated yet again.
What's the takeaway out of that from Canada? Because I think, because we have heavy oil as well, obviously the U.S. remains our primary customer. There's definitely speculation today, and you saw evidence of it even materialize in the stock market with Canadian oil stocks, that this could have a negative impact on Canadian exports to the United States, for example, of heavy crude. Based on what you just said, it sounds like it's not cause for panic at this moment in time yet.
No, not at all. And I think Trump is he's focused obsessively on the price of gasoline at the pump. He knows he promised to end inflation and the concern American consumers had about inflation. He hasn't really been able to do that. Prices of gasoline are down somewhat, but he keeps thinking about the price at the pump. Even if all of this investment that we've discussed took place, even if it proceeded at the most rapid pace possible, it would still be years before significant new Venezuelan production could come online. And so somebody may benefit and somebody may be harmed, but it'll be after Trump leaves the White House in all likelihood.
What do you make of his musings, his open musings since what happened early in the morning Saturday about replicating similar actions in other countries?
Well, I think it's evidence of what a very insightful person once said to me, that Trump has no filter between his brain and his mouth, and these things come out. I don't think it's serious. I don't think we should assume that plans are underway at the Pentagon to invade Colombia or Greenland or Canada. But I think when Trump talks that way, he does enormous harm to the United States, because people don't know whether he's serious or not, and may make him feel more satisfied, but it's really quite harmful to the U.S. and our relations with countries around the world.
I wonder, just maybe on that note, a concluding question. In the vein of, for example, Denmark, it's very specific that when he talked about it, when he brought it up, when he was scrumming with reporters, he invoked national security. And you obviously are an expert in the area, but in his most recent national security strategy that was released, he referenced it as well. This idea that if it's in the hemisphere and it's a resource the United States needs for national security, they won't hesitate to go get it. What should Canada, and I take your point very much so about it's difficult to determine his rationale or how seriously we should take him, but what should Canada take from that, do you think?
Well, I don't think he's read his national security strategy. I don't think he really cares about it. He didn't in the first term. I don't see why he should now. But he is impulsive, transactional. He doesn't think in grand thoughts. And the risk that one day he may decide to do something is high. And he doesn't have people around him who are going to say, but, Mr. President, that could cause problems. I think any kind of move against Greenland or even more far-fetched against Canada would be the end of the NATO alliance. It would do incalculable damage, not just to the United States, but to the entire Western world. And, just got to keep a level set on this. We're now down to just a little bit over 3 years before his term is over, and we have to collectively think of ways to minimize the damage, to turn his attention to something else, lest he cause real damage in NATO.
Okay, I will leave it on that note. I appreciate your time and your insights as always, Ambassador Bolton. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me.